Professor Joseph, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I will go right to the most important question for today, and it is the report that you produced and the recommendations together with the young leaders of the Western Balkans. Could you tell us more about the report for our audience, but also please accentuate the main recommendations that derived from this initiative that you were running in the past period of time?
Of course. And Žepa, first let me say it's my honor to sit for this interview with you, with all of your experience and your work with civil media and other outlets. It's my pleasure to discuss this report, which I believe is quite significant, and the timing is quite significant. And what would be, I think, most interesting for your viewers is that we just presented this at NATO headquarters, myself with my co-director, Sasha Ordanovsky. We co-lead this project. It's under a U.S. NATO grant, a U.S. mission to NATO grant. And we just presented this to Radmila Šekerinska, the new Deputy Secretary General of NATO. And we had a briefing with Deputy Secretary General Šekerinska, who was already familiar with this, because in September here in Skopje we had a public event. And it was clear she had thoroughly read these recommendations. So that's the first point, is that this is raised at very high levels. We also presented this, I personally gave this at NATO headquarters to Secretary General Rutte, Mark Rutte. So this has been presented, this report, to the highest levels of NATO. And obviously with support of the U.S. mission, the most, clearly, of course, the largest member of the NATO alliance. Third point here, and I would tell you, Žepa, the third interesting point was the timing of this. We presented this at NATO headquarters on the very day that Miroslav Lajčák, the EU Special Representative, was at NATO headquarters himself. In fact, I saw him there. I shook hands with Miro there. I had met him the day before in his office at the EU, but then I saw him the next day. So what does this mean? It means that the NATO alliance, on the day we were there presenting this, was focused on the Balkans, focused on the very question, and of course, the question that concerns them the most is the situation in Kosovo and Serbia. The still tense, unresolved situation between Kosovo and Serbia, and where KFOR troops, NATO troops, are deployed, and where there have been very serious incidents, including recently. So, and so that's the point. And the other point is that these recommendations are meaningful, and we can talk about that, Žepa, and I can explain why.
Thank you, and I'm familiar with the whole process because part of our team, my colleague Dragan Mišev, was part of this initiative in the first phase of it, and seeing is believing is also a very significant title, headline of the, and it's good for the headlines in media as well. And of course, timing is critical, and you, Professor, as an experienced professional, are known for making meaningful and timely steps, and of course, with the support of also our dear colleague Ordanovsky. Please give us the essence of the recommendations. What have NATO and EU ministers at this NATO summit hear from you at that presentation, and maybe what are the perspectives of these recommendations? Yes. Do you think they will actually make it happen?
These are great questions, Žepa. Let me take the last one first. Let me take the will they make it happen? Of course, there's no guarantee, but this is where my point is about the timing. We were there on a day when the focus of NATO is on the Balkans.
Yes.
And the question immediately comes, what can NATO do? Okay, they're deployed in KFOR, but what is it that they can do beyond the KFOR mission? And that's what these recommendations are all about. And there's two significant aspects about the recommendations. One is the process. Let's remember that these are from WB6 youth leaders. So we went around and recruited. I personally visited each of the WB6, Skopje, Belgrade, Pristina, Tirana, Podgorica, Sarajevo. I personally met with these teams more than once, bringing them together and giving them some guidance. So this is number one. It's across the WB6. Number two is across the WB6, and this includes Serbia. And in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it includes Serbs and Croats and Bosniaks. Okay, right. So we have a diverse, and in here in North Macedonia, it includes Macedonians and Albanians. So this is
and from what I know, you also had numerous online meetings
including seminars,
intensive correspondence.
Absolutely.
And seminars, different types of workshops, and it was extremely dynamic.
That's right. To explain to them about, for example, we had experts on hybrid warfare. We had a seminar with the Helsinki-based Center of Excellence on Hybrid Warfare. So this was presented to these youth leaders to give them even greater awareness. So what do you have? You have the fact that these youth leaders all see a constructive role for NATO beyond what it is already doing. Right. So that's what this is about. And what these recommendations are about in each case, these youth leaders, and there was a group of them in each of these 6 countries, and they came up with really, in some ways, they're expert recommendations about what NATO can help on cybersecurity, on protecting on infrastructure, which is a serious problem. There have been very serious attacks in both Montenegro and in Albania. Here in North Macedonia, it's a concern. So this is something where NATO can help. There are suggestions for what KFOR can do. Alterations in Kosovo there's a NATO office there. There's a NATO office in Sarajevo. So there are recommendations about how NATO can improve its interaction. As they are youth leaders, there are recommendations that pertain to engaging with youth. And this one is a consensus recommendation.
Also, the Albanian youth, as far as I remember, proposed that this should become a permanent location for also the NATO member countries, Albania, North Macedonia, and Montenegro. What do you think of that? I think it's a very interesting proposal.
Absolutely, and that is the consensus recommendation. So each of these 6 pertain to each of the 6 countries of the WB6, but jointly they recommend together that they all endorse this, that there should be a NATO-sponsored center. They use the term Center of Excellence, Center of Excellence for youth engagement, for youth leadership in the WB6, focused on the WB6, and that be a permanent location with a rotating leadership by year. So each year, one country would have the leadership of that, but that there would be a physical, permanent location in the region. And they all agree with that, and we support that. But these recommendations go even beyond youth. They go to military training, for example. This is another facet that there are recommendations. So this is currently it's on the Johns Hopkins SAIS website. My university is a partner, Johns Hopkins SAIS, together with Forum. And you see, and we're sponsored by the U.S. mission, that is the State Department. The U.S. State Department is the sponsor here. But that's very important because at NATO, obviously, the U.S. has great credibility.
Tell me, do you think that NATO can help these societies, these countries, the WB6, to deter the warfare, the hybrid warfare attacks on the Balkan soil? Not only cyber attacks and so on, but I'm referring the complex and the robust operations of influence that are coming through the open avenue of Russian influence, which is based in Belgrade, yes, but also via the church and also other religious communities, and also through economy. The oligarchs, the Balkan oligarchs, yes, are working very well, yes, both with hybrid regimes in Europe and beyond, but yes, also with Russia, finding all sorts of ways to violate the sanctions and so on. How much these recommendations, your initiative, and NATO together, and of course, who else could help? Tell us in deterring, in defending the Western Balkans from the warfare tactics that are obviously undergoing for a number of years now.
Well, Žepa, again, there are several recommendations in here that pertain, yes, to disinformation.
Yes.
And when our team, Sasho and I, and our youth leaders were in NATO headquarters, we had briefings from their experts. So it was a two-way street. The youth leaders were presenting their recommendations, and NATO officials were presenting what they were doing. So this was a true exchange of information. And I was determined to have this, that this would not just be youth leaders visiting and getting a tour and getting some briefings. No, this was not that. This was an exchange. They were listening. And I can tell you, Žepa, they were very interested. We have the proof. The NATO officials were very impressed by the capacity of these, all six of these youth leaders, and the fact, again, that they are sharing a common vision that NATO can help them in their country. And I emphasize here that includes Serbia. So I really want to emphasize that. And that in Serbia, that there's a group and a perception within Serbia. And to go to your question, yes, several of the key recommendations pertain to disinformation. And this is something that NATO is active on. This is what NATO officials were briefing them on, is what they are doing in the realm of disinformation. They have a quite intelligent approach that they're doing, but they can be doing more, and they can be doing more here in the Balkans, and that's what this is about, to explore that what else NATO can do. So it's very clear.
As an excellent connoisseur of the situation in the Balkans, practically you are the voice of the Balkans, not only Western Balkans, but the Balkans for a very long number of years, although you're still very young, of course. I would like to go to a couple of questions about the security and political situation, yes, with an emphasis on security, in the Western Balkans. I think we can recognize that in most of the W6 countries, we see severe operations to destabilize these, yes, countries, yes, both from outside, from Russia predominantly, and of course, we must not forget the Chinese, yes, influence in all these complex issue, but also from internal actors, far-right ultra-nationalist actors such as Dodik in Republika Srpska, and we know that we also have a very serious challenging security situation between Serbia and Kosovo, both September last year, in Banjska recently in November, the terrorist attack on Ibar Lepenec dam and canal, and several other indications that also in North Macedonia we see turbulences at the level of interethnic relations, Montenegro not to forget, and so on. So could you tell us what are the perspectives, the security perspectives of all these separate, they're all very different, but altogether they form a picture of not so stable or destabilizing situation.
Žepa, thank you. And you also bring a great deal of experience to this. I will quickly say my great privilege has been to work in the region on the ground for so many years, for a dozen years, and that I worked in every one of these conflict countries, including here in what was then Republika Macedonia in 2001. So during the conflict, so I was in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia throughout those wars, in Kosovo and here in 1999 and here again in 2001. And we can never go back to those days, and we must never go back to those days or even anything approaching that kind of polarization and division and destruction. Now, we're in a very strange situation here, because the situation I call the Balkans paradox. The Balkans paradox. Why is it a paradox? Because since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, the West is stronger and more unified. Russia is weaker and more isolated. And yet the Balkans are worse. It's more deterioration. So the West is stronger, Russia is weaker, but the Balkans are in a more deteriorated shape. This doesn't make sense. This is a paradox. And it demands, and it has an explanation. And you're correct, in each of these countries, there's this turbulence and uncertainty. Even in some cases, as you mentioned, in Kosovo, you have this instability with 20 kilograms of explosives placed on a bridge. You realize only an expert can do this. This is not throwing a Molotov cocktail like in Zvečan in May last year in 2023. You know, anybody can maybe do a Molotov cocktail. You do not put 20 kilograms there and blow, deliberately not destroying, but damaging, and to send some signal. This is not amateurs, okay? And this is a signal of the seriousness of the situation. And we have to understand that we cannot have anymore in the region this ambivalence. This ambivalence that, oh, well, we're, like in Serbia. Oh, well, we're EU candidate and we want to open up these chapters, but we're still with Russia and China. We choose our friends. No, you don't choose your friends. No, if you're part of, and you're wanting to join, no one is making Serbia join the European Union. No one makes Serbia join NATO. NATO doesn't tell them, oh, you have to join NATO. They say, okay, you don't want to join NATO. But Serbia says, we want to join the EU. Okay, you want to join the EU? You have to follow the rules. You have to align with the rest. And so tolerating this international ambivalence on Serbia is how you get to this regional ambivalence. No. Everyone has to accept. We are going forward, and guess what we're accepting? The borders are finished. The borders do not change. There's no more of this. And that goes including here in North Macedonia. There's Ohrid Framework Agreement. That is the agreement. And we can discuss, people can discuss, but they discuss on the basis that there is a state here of North Macedonia. That state exists. and the rules exist, and we can discuss and
within that framework.
Within that. That's exactly the framework. But we are not going outside the framework, and we are not threatening, and we are not exaggerating, and then saying, you know, and changing this and changing that, and we're going to do this our way, and no, and this message from the United States, this blacklist, Artan Grubi, and things like this is a signal, a good signal from the U.S. that there are limits. There are limits to what the U.S.
politician
can do.
May do.
And anyone who would say, well, that's meddling, no, it's not meddling, because this is with respect to our country, with the United States. So no, you will not have people who act in ways that are clearly destabilizing, or there's open suspicion on corruption. Then they do not have the privilege of visiting the United States and interacting with the United States. So that's the point. We have to understand that it's a free choice. You want to be with Russia? You want to be with China? Okay.
There you go.
That's your sovereign right. But if you want to be European Union, and also those who are in NATO or have aspirations with NATO, you have to accept. You have to accept. And that's it. And what it means to accept is what I call in a written the Western order. And that means the border questions are finished.
Maybe the Bosnian question,
Yes.
very briefly, Professor,
Yes.
please.
Sure.
Do you think that Dodik is a threat to the unity of this country? Do you think he's a threat to the security situation to this country and beyond? Yeah. Particularly knowing that there are allegations and even credible reports of quite a few armed groups and stashes of weapons in Republika Srpska's mountains and forests.
Well, there's no question that he's a threat to the order. And we should remember, he got a very significant message back in August with the visit of the CIA director, William Burns. Okay? That was not Burns, who has many other jobs to do, and is CIA director, but one who comes with a very strong State Department background, a senior diplomat as well. And I think that Milorad Dodik got a very clear message. Now, the thing coming up is this court case, this decision. So let's see what the court decision is, and then let's see what reaction. What is imperative is that whatever is the decision of the court, it has to be respected. So that is the main point, and I think and I hope that Dodik and other factors understand that the U.S. that there's a commitment from the U.S. and I think also you have a high representative there who has shown that he's willing to act as well. Again, though, we have disturbing posture from Serbia. We have this Serb world. We have this all-Serb assembly. We have these interactions and interventions in Montenegro. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, we see Dodik and Vučić showing up together at many places. So Belgrade is increasingly going to have to accept its responsibility for if there are problems and instability in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
At the end, Professor, the Ukraine war has changed the world since it started. The brutal aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine is not only an aggression against Ukraine, but it's also an aggression against the free world, about the West, against the West and against the free world, in which is lasting for more than 3 years, of course, but it has intensified with the full-scale invasion against Ukraine. So what are the prospects, Professor, of this war especially regarding the shift in power in the United States and also the political insecurities and instabilities in the European Union, especially with the latest German political crisis and the imminent elections, early elections, and some other elements in the whole picture, including the far right rise.
Let's, for your viewers to make it clear, let's break it up into three. Okay, sure. There's United States, European Union, and NATO, we can say, and Russia. Okay, U.S. So we have a situation of those three. If we look at just raw power dynamics, United States, Russia, U.S. Power is up. Russian power is down. Okay. Let's take U.S. for a second. Donald Trump. What we cannot know, and no one can know, and probably even Donald Trump doesn't even know himself because he's very impulsive, is exactly what Donald Trump will do. We don't know. We don't know his posture. What we do know is that he and his team around him, they want to focus on China. So they do have and expressed an interest to try to end the war in Ukraine. And of course, it's not a bad thing to end a war. You know from your work, you've been honored by President Zelensky, Jaber, and we all salute you for that, for your great work there. But you know that many Ukrainians are dying and there's tremendous destruction. So it would be good to end the war. But the question is on what terms? So now we come to Putin. Okay, so Putin is in a very weak position. U.S. power is up. Russian power is down. And all those here in North Macedonia who somehow think Russia is good and Serbia and Russia and also in many in Serbia, this is a ridiculous position. This is just invention like Alice in Wonderland. And we see the proof of this in Syria with this fall of Bashar Assad. So I ask anyone there in the audience, you think Russia is so powerful? Why couldn't they even prop up this guy, Bashar Assad, with hundreds of thousands of soldiers against these militias that were not even really fighting very much? There was only even limited fighting. And I've read even quotes from Iranian officials who there saw, who said the soldiers just ran away. They ran away. Even the officers, they just ran away. So this is the Russian client, and this is what Russia does. So Russia allows its friends to collapse like this, and now you have this brutal dictator they give after he slaughters so many people using civilians attacking hospitals. Allow me a minute here. Yes, everyone is shouting Gaza, Israelis in Gaza. At least the Israelis gave warning. At least, okay? It's very big suffering and we know that for Gazans. But at least they gave warning and everyone was complaining, the people are moving. It's true. But at least they were telling them to move. Okay, many civilians have been killed, but of course Hamas is embedding. But it's a terrible tragedy in Gaza. What was Bashar Assad doing? No warnings. There were no warnings to civilians. When they were attacking hospitals, it wasn't because militia was embedded. It's because they wanted to destroy the hospitals. Deliberately. Aleppo, this complete destruction with the purpose of destruction. For Israelis, and again, they have to be, of course, held accountable. Israel has to be held accountable. But the purpose was not to destroy civilians. It was not the purpose. The purpose was to destroy Hamas. In Assad case in Syria, the purpose was absolutely to destroy civilians and destroy civilian infrastructure because he wanted to prove that this civilian leadership could not protect. That was his strategy. And everyone in Gaza, about 42, 43, maybe as many as 45,000. Maybe a third of those, we don't know exactly, are fighters, but some number, significant number of fighters. In Syria, the death toll, minimum, according to UN, these are confirmed deaths by name, minimum 300,000. Many people say 500, some people say even 600,000. So this is around 10 times as many as Gaza. Using chemical weapons, one of the most horrific ways to die.
Genocide against their
own people, their own citizens. And again, there was no October 7th. There was no where they went into Damascus and were slaughtering Syrians and things like this. They were fighting for change under Arab Spring, and obviously some of the militias are very problematic, and some of them are extremists. There's no jihadists, and it's true. But you have this focus there on Gaza, this Bashar Assad, let's just say probably about 500,000 were killed. Easily 10 times as many as in Gaza. And on top of this, according to UNHCR, 14 million refugees, 1-4 million. This is over half the country. Imagine in North Macedonia, 1 million refugees in this country. Imagine that, what this would be like, of half the country. And creating instability, even in Europe.
Only in one prison nearby Damascus, 80,000 victims, at least.
In a prison, this brutality. So why am I saying all of this? Because those here in North Macedonia who somehow think Russia is good, this is what Russia backed. This is the dictator that Russia and Iran were backing. And now this great Russia, Takozvani, great Russia, cannot even back a guy who has advantages and Russian weapons and Iranian weapons and Iranian support, and everyone is running now like rats from the ship. Russia is running, Iran is running. Even the latest reports is that Russia is flying its aircraft out because it's afraid. So this is the Russia that people in the Balkans, in Serbia, and in maybe some places in Montenegro, in Republika Srpska, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in here in North Macedonia. I don't understand why anyone would respect or say, oh, this is some kind of future, and we like Russia because they're fighting the West. Really? This is a disgrace. And what this means is that Vladimir Putin is in a very weak position. And he's in a weak position now. Trump is in a much stronger position. Iran is also in a much weaker position now. So both Russia and Iran are in a weaker position. And we have to see if Trump is smart, and if his team, he has a good pick for Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, if they are smart, they can use this to advantage, and they can maybe negotiate an end. But the problem is Vladimir Putin is now in a very weakened position, especially with this Assad. Yeah. Even in Russia, they're writing, even his supporters in Russia are admitting that this is a catastrophe for Putin. There's no spinning this. There's no spinning this, that this is somehow, some victory. No. So he's in a vulnerable position. And so we don't know. In one way, he's weak. That means he could negotiate easier. In another way, he could be vulnerable and even scared. Scared that he will end up like Assad. You see? And so in that case, that he thinks he may think he needs more victory in Ukraine. So that's where we stand. But it's clear the United States has the upper role here. Žepa, thank you.
Professor, I hope that this interview, especially the last part, will be seen and heard and understood by the actors who are going to need to make decisions in the coming months, especially in regards to Ukraine, which is, in my view, the key to the world stability and peace.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, Professor, indeed.